more importantly than that, I try to gear this show obviously for the young adults who are unfortunately not in the best spot, because as we know, it might seem kind of crazy both in the church and out of the church, and some like myself have been kind of tearing their hair out in some respects. But really, what kind of encouragement or advice, Matt, would you give to them? Or really, this is just a question for myself, just trying to just stay true to Mother Church, even in the midst of all this confusion, the shouting and the yelling.
The reality is, I think the church is in a beautiful place at this time in the history of the world and the history of the church. I know maybe they may not look like that. I'm not saying, like, I know there's external things going on where it looks like, oh my gosh, how do we deal with all this? But I think the reality is there's so much noise. Like you mentioned, there's so much stuff, external stuff going on in the church and in the world outside of that people may perceive. But I think the beauty and the fullness of the church is found in that it's a home for us. It's a beacon of, like, let's go here and be found and rest in the Lord, and the beauty and the fullness of the church is where that is found. So I think be not afraid to go, to be there, and to use the gifts that God has given you, whether you know what they are yet or not, but that the church is here for a reason, and it's still very much for us at this point in the history of the world. And I think, if not more than ever, like the church, and again, in all its beauty and all its fullness, and lived properly, is a beacon of light for the world that needs it very much so. And really, the biggest thing is, and Pope Francis has been echoing this a ton, post-synod and during the synod, is that the church is young. The church is a young church. Like, Jesus was a young adult. And, like, that blew my mind when I read Christus Vivit. Like, oh, yeah, I know there's some cultural things there, but maybe it's not the same. But Jesus was a young adult, and the church is young, and it's here, and we need young adults to be actively engaged. And there's just this great sense of what the Pope calls co-responsibility, that while young people are needed, so are everybody, and just how we all have a co-responsibility to kind of to grow the church and to bring that mission of Jesus into the world. So it's a beautiful time, even in the midst of the chaos of the world, and that's exactly why the church is here, and that's why the Lord calls us into full communion with Him.